Hey guys, this is Hell Hades. This is another Fateless video. Welcome if you're new to the channel. So we're going to be going through some of the big Q&A topics. A lot of the community are asking us questions about our first game, about this project. What we tend to do is put this information out first on our Patreon page. And actually right now we are asking the Patreons, thank you so much for being involved by the way, what they would like to know next. And as our project ramps up, we're going to be able to share some of our information on that page nice and early about the game design, about some of the new characters, etc. So if you want to be involved in that and get the info early, I'll put the link down below in the video. But if not, enjoy the Q&A from this month.
So guys, welcome to the first Q&A session that we've got here for the Patreon channel, Fateless Games. Obviously, I've got myself, Dan, Hell Hades or Simon, and Sham or Hisham joining us here to go through some of the questions that we've got on the channel. So these questions came from the people who are members of our Patreon channel. We've gone through, and obviously there are things that we can answer and can't answer, but you know, we thought we'd go through and answer as many as we could for you. So to start off with, we talked about this just a moment ago. Trying to come up with sort of a good way to open this, and we thought it would be a nice sort of subject to start off with, to talk about what games influenced our decision making to actually make our own game here. So Simon, do you want to maybe lead in with this and talk about maybe some of the games that have influenced your decision in sort of making your game and what you would like the game to kind of reflect?
Yeah, look, I think there's, I mean, when I did my video on the YouTube channel, like I've played tons of games, absolutely tons of games, but there's a few things which stand out to me. And obviously the most recent one that I've played a ton is Raid Shadow Legends, and Raid's actually got a really good kind of depth of characters and interesting different heroes to collect, which is definitely something we want to make sure that we bring into our first game. I definitely think there will be vibes of World of Warcraft and how interesting some of the boss mechanics will be. And I'm not saying we're going to be on this kind of big MMO world, and it's probably going to be a bit much for our first game, but definitely some of the different strategies you have to employ to have fun in a boss fight. And that's something which I know we've all played WoW, actually, all three of us. And that was always my best thing, like going on a big raid, and you know, Karazhan comes to mind. You know, you've got really interesting, fun bosses, and you have to prepare for each one in a different way. How about you guys?
Oh man, so I would say some of my favorites. I mean, there's so many favorites, but ones that I feel like will weave into our design of the game. I would say that Path of Exile is one that kind of comes to mind for me. Now, Path of Exile has a million different elements that you kind of draw from, but what I love about Path of Exile is actually its itemization and how they do, you know, equipment, and how unique and interesting and deep really the game is from that perspective. And there's lots of things that it could do better. There's lots of things that we won't really be drawing from, but man, I just love the excitement that game gives you when you find the right thing, right? And so if we can kind of capture that, and like, you know, building your team and getting the right characters, that's one element, but also like kitting out your team and making them have the right items or equipment in each slot is such an important factor in these games. Yeah. And so for me, like Path of Exile just really pops out to me. And you know, it's an indie team. GGG is such a cool company to kind of see grow. So yeah, I definitely find some inspiration from Path of Exile and GGG in particular.
I think touching on that actually with Path of Exile for sure, is they're kind of well renowned in the industry as being a company that found the perfect balance of a free-to-play game which had microtransactions which aren't aggressive, and you know, they're fair for everyone, which I think is, you know, an amazing sort of title for them to be able to hold with that game. They've got an incredible game. It's free to play if you don't want to spend, but at the same time, it's justified if you do want to spend to support the game for things like battle passes, cosmetics, and stuff like that, which obviously helps support the actual growth and development of the project itself.
Yeah.
So for me personally, I mean, obviously we want to take inspirations from the leaders in the industry that we're going to be going for. So Hero Collector, you know, we've already said publicly that is the type of game that we will be going for. So, you know, obviously we can't ignore games Raid Shadow Legends, Summoner's War, other big titles that have kind of made their place in this industry. But for me personally, I'd like to see us also have some more dynamic, I guess, synergy between teams. So almost elements of games like Hearthstone, where you're building your team around abilities, but then there's this random synergy that works, and suddenly all your abilities fall into place, and everything comes together at the end. You've almost got like the Yu-Gi-Oh effect, where he's like placing all the cards down and kind of plotting the way for his success at the end.
Yeah,
and
You've
I'd
activated
love
my trap card.
exactly,
Sorry.
but that's the thing. I would love to see a turn-based RPG game that had enough potential to pull off all of these things, which really take, especially in PvP, players by surprise. Something comes out that you've never seen before, and it gives it that dynamic feel to it, that it's actually skill-based, not just who's got the highest stats and things like that. Right, so let's jump into some of the questions that we've had here on the Patreon page. So the first one that I've got here is: will the game be aimed at mobile players, or will it be a PC-based game?
Well, shall I jump in? I mean,
Yeah.
You can jump in.
Yeah.
All of us.
It's going to be aimed at all of the above. Likelihood is, and this is something we're still having some conversations with Magic Media on, but likelihood is we launch on mobile and then extend to PC and Mac. We want to understand just how challenging would it be, or what would it do to our time frame if we were to launch on all, and also does that adjust costs and stuff like that. But ultimately, we want to make sure that it's going to be a client for PC and Mac, and for sure it's going to be mobile as well.
Yeah, I think that leads on quite nicely to a question that we've got. So I am skipping one, but we will go back to how much creative control are we actually going to have going forward on this project. Obviously, there was talks of Magic Media there, who are our development partner on this project. So can you guys maybe give us a bit of information into how much creative control and things like that is here on the project?
Ultimate creative control. Like I don't know how else to.
Yeah, 100%. Like
Yeah.
I
don't know how else to say it, right?
I guess the fact is, right, so we're not going to be sitting in the offices next to these people designing the game, but we will be interacting on an extremely regular basis. We'll be mapping out what this game looks like with their team pretty much for like a 4-month period up front before the code's kind of being pushed through. And ultimately, this is our game, our vision, but we've got specialists from their team building that vision. So it's 100%. Like it's going to be our game. If we don't like some of the output, it gets redone until we're happy with what they're doing.
Sweet. Okay, so just going back to the question we skipped, have you guys put any ideas into how you might balance free to play versus pay to win?
I mean, yes, of course, right? I think one of the biggest things that any game has to wrestle with, not really wrestle with, but really has to consider and really think about is, well, you always want free to play to be super accessible, right? It should be fun, it should be exciting, it should be something that you can do, in the early game, and it should be something that you can do in the end game. But you always have to balance that people are investing. This is a game where people are investing in their characters. They're spending, they'll be spending money on the game, right? So, the short answer is, I think that our goal is best in class for the genre that we're in, right? So we plan that are fine to play, free to play, and there's lots of games where it's like, oh, this is pay to win. So basically, we want to find that we're going to be finding that middle ground. Like a lot of time in those first 4 months is going to be spent like saying, okay, well, what is the early journey? What's the mid game look like? What's the end game? What's the top end game, right? The like top 0.1% or whatever.
Awesome. So next question, and I'm going to jump in with the answer for this one at least to start off with, is have you thought about tools, third-party tools for your game, like the Deadwood Jedi calculator? So my opinion on this is that if you think about where we started from, we effectively built our business, which has allowed us to even create Fateless off the back of another game. So we created tools and things like that. I would love to be able to be in a position with Fateless that we could do more to help other people in the community come up with cool ideas and cool tools and things like that to support our game to potentially do exactly what we've done, but in their scenario for our game. That being said, obviously, a lot of the things that we created for other games are because we can see that there's obviously massive gaps in what these games are doing to support players. So I would say 100% yes, we will support third-party applications as long as they don't effectively break the core fundamentals of the game or effectively like cheat engines. We're not going to obviously support anything like that. But if they're for the benefit of the game and the players, I would want us to do everything within our power to support those people and go further than having to almost jump through the hoops that we've had to be able to support the community that we've built so far. So, putting in place API access for people to be able to make tier lists and, calculators and things like that for the more technical aspects of the game, and allowing people to come up with cool ideas, because obviously, yes, we're working on the game, but we haven't got all of the best ideas in the world.
Yeah.
The community will come up with something cool within the first couple of days that they want to share with their community. And we should do everything that we can to support them growing their own exposure and content around this too. So how, and this was mainly to Simon, is how are you planning to handle your time between keeping up with raid content and hellhades.com and running Fateless?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, I mean, already there's been a whole bunch of additional time that's gone into Fateless that people just won't see because we've been working with legal teams, our accounting teams, investor conversations. There's a whole bunch of stuff that's just going on right now. And clearly, hellhades.com has not fallen over. And my YouTube channel has continued to put out videos every single day. So, that sort of thing, I think will just continue. I just manage my workload. Obviously, yourself, Dan, and then beyond that, a really, really strong team continue to do the content at hellhades.com. It's not just me. It's barely me at all anymore. Like for early days, maybe, but nowadays we've got a team that do a lot of that work, and it's really like us steering that team. So that's going to continue, even if we didn't put a single minute into hellhades.com 2 years from now, that would continue to run. It would continue to offer the tools that you need, all that type of stuff. So I guess the only thing that at the moment is kind of drawing back for me is the amount of time I can put into live streaming, because those kind of 3-hour chunks, that's been really tough when we're also kind of filling up our day with a load of other really important meetings. But ultimately, I still play Raid, still love Raid. That's not going away. So I will continue as best I can.
So the last two questions that I've got here, and there is actually kind of one bonus one that we'll just talk about very, very quickly about investment, but I'm going to tie them into one because it's what is the most interesting part of the process so far, and what part of the game creation experience are you looking forward to most? So if we just kind of go around and say, so far, what's been the most interesting part, and what are you most looking forward to about this journey?
I guess I can speak to the most interesting part for me. Maybe I don't know if interesting is the right word, but the thing I've been most impressed with is kind of like the outpouring of support from just the community. Like I always knew that what you guys had built at HH Gaming, and was amazing, and people would be excited about it. But it's been insane. I mean, honestly, that has been the coolest part for me to see that, when we were having these discussions about how getting this done, how much the community would step up. I guess that's been the most impressive. I guess interesting is maybe a word to describe it, but that's been the most impressive part for me.
So if I just dip into that same question, and I think it's probably a follow-on really, because for me, I would have answered exactly the same way. The community response to my initial video, and then the community kind of pouring into our new YouTube channel, our new Discord, all that type of stuff has been super fun, super cool. But also in the Discord, where I just kind of put a question out there, has anyone got some ideas for game design? What could we do? What have you seen in other games which is really good? And I just love reading through them, man. I'm just literally like,
yeah,
this is a cool one. Like, how do we kind of shoehorn this in, or actually tweak what's being said? But there's definitely some really, really great ideas that we can pull from you know, people that have played games like us, people that have played games for a long time. They've got some really good ideas. So I think we can go ahead and try and weave that into our game as well.
Yeah.
What about you, Dan?
What about you, Dan?
So I guess the most interesting part of the experience so far is just coming, I guess, full circle with what you guys said is one, seeing the initial reaction, because I know I was holding Simon off from telling the world for a very long time. And you know, I can't help but feel that there's a right time to kind of drop these things, and we held on to the information for as long as we possibly could until we had like an actual solid idea in place that this was going to happen.
Yeah.
Before telling the world. But then seeing that initial burst of interest that came out when you first sort of put that video out and you know, told people on stream and things like that, but it hasn't died off, which is something which I thought honestly that we would get this spike, and then, you know, because this is a 2-year project, you know, I thought we would have like an initial spike and it would trail off. But you know, even every single day we're getting tens, not if not hundreds of people joining the Discord. We're having tons of emails with support. The amount of people who have signed up to the Patreon, which obviously this is going out on, to actually financially support us with like the day-to-day running of the business, has been massive. And I think that's probably been the most interesting part of the process so far. The part that I'm probably most looking forward to, and it again ties on to this whole part of the journey, is actually sharing the story with the community. I love the idea that, especially with the YouTube channel, we're almost creating a documentary about the journey over the next 2 years. And although it may sound a little bit dull or slow at the moment because we're just kind of introducing each other, that's mainly because our time is mainly being spent doing things like legal meetings that we just can't share with people right now. But once that's over and we're into development and we've got concept art, things like that to share with people, that's going to be the amazing part. And that's where this sort of journey is going to really form this whole storyline of, you know, going from having no game company to launching a game at the end of it, and even, you know, creating future titles down the line. So kind of final bonus question that was asked here, and it relates to where we are right now, because as a lot of the community know, we're currently in a position where we're going and talking to investors and things like that. And we just wanted to clear up some information about the structure or the funding structure of the company, and what protections, I guess, are in place to make sure that there isn't pressure from investors to push one way or another, especially in terms of making the game free to play friendly and things like that. So do you guys want to maybe just give some information in regard to that?
I would say this is a place where we really are doing it quite differently than I don't know, most studios. Like because of what we've talked about earlier with this amazing outpouring of support and from the community. I mean, actually right now, almost all of the of the interest that we've had, that we've even reached out for, has been directly from the community. So, you know, from an investment standpoint, we have, normally it would be like, oh, we're going to go out to venture capital. You're going to talk to for you know, the amount that we're looking for, because it's, you know, a realistic amount to get the game done. You go to venture capital. There's a bunch of different ways, but particularly if you look at venture capital, there's a lot of control, right? So like they're coming in and they're they have a lot of expertise and that's great. But we're basically protecting the investors and the community in the sense that we're retaining as much control as possible. So, you know, we're only giving away 20% of the company. We're at least right now mainly taking investment from community members that are really excited and want to support, and so they understand and are excited about our vision for the game, which is one that protects the community. Like we're you know, I can't imagine that that Simon, you and Dan have any interest in kind of like doing anything, you know, poor for the community that you've built and you've grown around. And I'm 100% on board with that. I 100% agree. I think that's what really makes this game special, is that we're you know, we're forging our path together, right? Or forging our fate together. And I think that at the investment level in particular, we're doing everything we can basically to give it so that we have as much control, and then we protect our investors and our players and our community in the best way that we can, that we know how.
Awesome. Right, well, guys, this is obviously the first Q&A that we've done here on Patreon. Thank you very much for submitting your questions. I will be putting up a post in the next couple of weeks, which will allow you to do the same again, effectively. And we're going to try and catch up like this probably once a month with the guys and answer some more of the questions that you may have going forward. But obviously, massive thanks to everyone who's already here on the Patreon and supporting us on Discord, YouTube, and all those sorts of things. As soon as we've got more information to share, we will absolutely do that to keep the community informed.
Thank you.
Awesome.
You guys are
Thanks,
you guys
guys.
are amazing. Yeah.